Imagine with me for a minute that you just moved to the city where your practice is and you need a specialist, but you don't know anybody, you don't have a primary care doctor yet, but you have a problem that needs to be addressed. What's the first thing you're going to do? Chances are pretty high you're going to get on Google or your favorite search platform and you're going to start searching for doctors who address shoulder pain. I will throw that out there as an example. When the search results come up, you're likely going to see an AI answer that describes what the shoulder pain is coming from and maybe a reference to a practice nearby. Is that practice yours? And maybe not. Below that, you're probably going to see 2 or 3 sponsored listings from your competitors or maybe even yourself if you're running ads. And then below that, you're going to see 3, 4, 5, 7 other entries. And if you were this person and you're looking for someone, chances are pretty high you're going to start clicking on those links to see what their website looks like because from the Google list, you all look the same. Unless there's, some red flag like somebody has 3.7 stars or somebody has 4.9 stars and all their competitors are way below that. But chances are pretty high if you don't know what you're looking for, you're just going to start clicking on those business names. And when you get to their websites, if they all say the same thing, like we have excellent patient care and we get you back on your feet, and they're all very generic language and they don't really speak to this person's challenges or the things that they want to get back to, you're not differentiating yourself at all in the marketplace. And there's no difference between them picking you or one of the other 5 people that they clicked on. Chances are pretty high that every single one of those websites say something like patient-centered or excellent care or the best doctors in orthopedics, for example. If every other website says that, that's not a differentiation factor. That's just you mimicking what everybody else in your industry is saying. And differentiation is what speaks clearly and loudly to the people that need you and what you do. In this episode, we are going to dive into how to create real differentiation in a crowded marketplace that not only makes you stand out, but gives you the opportunity to serve people at a higher capacity. And with a higher capacity usually comes higher revenue. If we haven't met yet, I'm Alisa Connor, and I show up every week on YouTube to share with specialty medical practices and professional services ways to connect and measure revenue that you're investing in your marketing to actual patients and clients. This week, we are talking about differentiation, and it's a huge indicator of whether or not you're standing out online. And it's even more important now than it was in the past for the simple reason that AI is taking over all the content creation. So your competitor down the street can plug everything into AI and spit out content like crazy, which might work for SEO, but if it's not done right, they're not showing up in the AI answers. And as I mentioned, that's the first thing people see now when they go to Google. AI will try to answer the question, and each of those answers is coming from someone's website. But if your website isn't one of those answers, you're not going to show up. If you're lucky and people keep scrolling down the page, then they might get to you. But again, if you aren't standing out from everyone else, then the likelihood that they're going to stick around on your page and book an appointment versus your other 4, 5, 7 competitors is slim to none. The reality about clinical excellence in a specialty medical practice is it's assumed, and everybody thinks it's a differentiator, but everybody has it because they have to. We are not going to go to a practice that doesn't have excellent doctors or excellent care because we have a lot of other options. And so if you're relying on your laurels of clinical excellence, then you're behind the curve. And we need to get you brought up to where things are standing right now. Unfortunately, and fortunately, patients and customers have the access to everything under the sun to learn pretty much anything they want to know about your practice before they ever pick up a phone, clicked on your website link, or talk to someone about your practice. And that is all done through reviews, website experience, the stories that they either connect with or don't connect with on your website or on your social media posts, and the conversations that you're creating or not creating with them to bring them closer to want to learn more. The truth about differentiation in medical practices and any business at this point is you have to make people feel like they're in the right place. And if you don't, they're going to continue searching for the place that makes them feel like they're at home. And if your practice or your office is not doing that, then you're missing out not only on potential clients and patients, but you're also missing out on a ton of potential revenue. And at the end of the day, if you're not differentiating yourself and you're not determined to carve out your niche in the market and show how and why you're different, choices for people to work with you and or become a patient of yours come down to price and convenience. At the end of the day, those two will determine whether or not people come to you or someone else. And you don't necessarily want to be the Walmart of your industry. Everybody can compete on price, but do you want to be that person? Or do you want to be the organization that delivers exceptional service, patient care, and interest in your patients so that you can become the Tiffany of your industry versus Walmart? I know which one I would rather go to, and I ask the same for you. If you were a patient of your own practice or a customer of your own business, would you do business with yourself? And would you know that you were in the right place? If not, then stay tuned because we're going to talk about how to fix that. One of the biggest challenges that I see in every size and shape of organization, whether it's medical practices or a engineering firm, is that though every organization struggles with how to talk about how they're different, and they struggle with trying to narrow down who it is they specifically help and why they help that person. And every organization and every department within an organization even has its own culture, it has its own nuances, it has its own things that work well, and it has its own ability to connect with and build rapport with a certain kind of individual. But organizations fear having those specific conversations and diving that deeply because they don't want to alienate people that don't fit into that mix. But in the world that we live in, and especially with online, the deeper you go with the conversations that you start to implore with the people you want to work with, the faster they're going to find you and the quicker you're going to stand out from everyone else. But if you're like every other medical practice out there, for example, if you're like every dentist out there, they all pretty much say the same things on their website. They don't tell any personal stories, and they speak to anybody who needs a dentist. Well, there's no differentiation between you and Joe Blow down the street because you're both dentists. You both have a lot of dentists. You both have all the new and fancy equipment, and you both have the same testimonials on your website. So if the choice is going to Fred Jones or coming to your office and Fred Jones is cheaper, I'm going to choose Fred because you haven't shown me that there's any reason to come to you. And that's what we need to talk about. And that's where people get stuck. I've done a lot of training around creating messaging that's clear, concise, and tells a story. And what I've learned with working with probably over 500 different types of businesses is that this is an area everybody struggles with. It's really hard to tell the story that your customers are looking for when you are so invested in the story being told the way you have experienced it. And that's really what it comes down to. I've worked with medical organizations that have, 5 doctors. I've worked with medical organizations that have 50 doctors. I've worked with corporations with over 500,000 employees. But at the end of the day, that story will either resonate with the people that want to do business with you or it won't. And if it doesn't, then you've lost them. And more often than not, because people within an organization are all like-minded and have been involved in the organization, it's really hard to pull themselves away from the story they've been telling themselves and the story that they want to be told to tell the story that's actually going to bring new people into the office. One of the telltale signs of an organization that doesn't know how to differentiate is they spend a lot of time talking about all the things that they do. They talk about their services, they talk about their newest equipment, they talk about the credentials of their doctors, they talk about all of these different things. But at the end of the day, nobody's shopping for any of those things. And whether you're going to a doctor or you're looking for an architect, you're shopping for something. And if you don't know what that is, and you don't know the outcome of what it means to the person that's going to buy that item, service, whatever it is, then you aren't speaking their language, because people are shopping for a solution to their problem and the end result of having their problem solved. 90% or more of websites that I look at never talk about this. They immediately go into, we service this, we do this, da, 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 and they go into solutions. Rarely are they talking about the problems that people, human beings, are going to relate to in a way that makes it very evident that they need your services. And this is where you lose people. The people that can identify, discuss, and confidently express the results that their patients or their customers will get will win every time. So rather than talking about your brand new piece of equipment for MRIs, you're better off to talk about how quickly you get people back on their bike and riding their next triathlon or whatever their event that they want to ride their bike in looks like for most of your patients, or having your patients tell that story is even more powerful. And then the second reason that messaging doesn't resonate with people, as I just mentioned this, is that you're trying to talk to everyone. And one of the mentors that I've had in my life, Marie Forleo, often used the phrase, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And I have seen it come true again and again and again. Because if a specific type of person is looking, for example, a orthopedic surgeon to work on their foot, they don't want to be treated like a number. They want to be treated like somebody has dealt with another person who had the exact thing going on with their foot that this patient has going on. And they want to hear the story in a way that it relates to their life. So, for example, if they need foot surgery and they have bunions, some of the common challenges are they can't find shoes, or every pair of shoes hurts, or whenever they walk or do physical activity, their foot hurts, and on and on and on. I'm not a doctor, but most organizations aren't talking about the effects of that pain or that condition on the lives of that patient. They're talking about it from a very like, well, we go in and do surgery and we have this great new rod that we can put in your toe, and you'll be back to, 6 weeks of recovery, and and they don't even get to like what life will be look like afterwards. Or if they do, it's so generic that it never really clicks with the audience, because they're trying to talk to every person that would have a foot injury instead of making it personalized and getting out of the fear-based marketing, which is talking to everyone instead of talking to specific patients. So a way to look at this is, if your organization, I've seen very few examples of specifically specialty medical practices who talk about results for specific patients. The one that comes to mind very specifically calls out cyclists, and they work specifically with cyclists, and they can tell those stories. They have no problems getting business, because every cyclist within a 50-mile or more radius is going to go to that doctor because they have put their line in the sand and said, we work with cyclists. Most other organizations are too afraid to do that. But that's exactly the reason they're not getting the traction that they want and need. When you're specific, it automatically creates trust. From the simple perspective that you have told a story, that you understand what it means to a cyclist, to have surgery and have to recover. And you can tell the stories about that process very specifically because you've helped people through the process. Maybe you've gone through the process, or you're a cyclist yourself and you know what it means to get back on the road. When you're trying to talk to everyone about everything and about all the things you do, it makes it really hard to get specific because that is a giant undertaking and it makes it very hard to be successful. Now, one of the things about specificity that I like to bring up, because it freaks people out to get specific, especially in their marketing, is that just because you are being specific with the verbiage and the language that you're using on your website doesn't mean that's the only thing you do. It just means that that's what you've chosen to be known for. Now, does it mean that this clinic that I'm talking about that helps cyclists doesn't ever work with anybody else? Absolutely not. They have many doctors, many services, and they have many testimonials from people that are not cyclists. But because they put their line in the sand for cyclists, they automatically attract that audience and most people that are connected to the cyclist, because word of mouth is a real thing in both medicine and business. So another example is my son works for an engineering company, and they are known for building all of the big venues, stadiums, the Sphere in Las Vegas, and very big venue projects like that. So it's almost a joke in the industry that other people won't even apply for big projects like that. For example, in Denver, we have a new stadium that's being proposed and also a new training camp for the Broncos. And the word on the street is it doesn't matter if we apply for it or not because ME is going to get it because that's what they're known for. 9 out of 10 times, that's true. But that's because they've made a name for themselves in that specificity. And so with their brand comes trust. That is just an example of what could be possible for your brand and your organization. Now, does that mean they only do stadiums? No, they do all kinds of buildings. They do from new construction to remodels and on down the line, everything from electrical to mechanical engineering, you name it. But what they're known for and how their name comes up in conversations is for large venues. And so if you aren't dictating that and telling that story, then either the story isn't being told or it's not being told effectively. Now, does it mean that you don't have a special sauce within your organization or within your practice? Absolutely not. The people, the culture, the values, and the philosophy within your organization is unique to you and to your practice and your business. But if you're not effective at telling that story, you're just keeping that to yourselves and nobody's going to know. And that's where people get stuck. They get stuck in telling the story in a way that is enticing and interesting and valuable to people outside of the organization. So you could be the best clinical practice in Denver, but if you don't know how to tell the story, nobody's ever going to know that. And that's where people get stuck. That's where their biggest differentiation factor exists. And they're not taking advantage of it. One of the best ways to differentiate yourself in today's marketplace is to outhuman your competition. This is a term that I came up with that is built on the philosophy discussed by Will Guidara in Unreasonable Hospitality. Will Guidara built a very successful and famous restaurant in New York City called 11 Madison Park. Of course, he focused on having the best food and the best chefs and all of those things. But what he became known for was creating unique and special moments of unreasonable hospitality for the guests in his restaurant. What he became known for was the unique experiences that he provided for people that were delivered unexpected joy. Now, whether or not you think you have a relationship with your patients or customers when they walk in your door, you do. You've started to create that relationship before they ever even got to your office. And you have opportunities along that journey to wow them and give them unexpected joy. Whether or not you're taking advantage of those opportunities is fully up to you. That's one of the things that I help people delineate and create in their organizations so that they do stand out from their competitors. And part of that is messaging, but a bigger part of that is the actual experience that people have. And that experience is being determined whether you're in the room or not. But you have the ability, the responsibility, and the capability to create that patient and customer experience every step along the way. And if you aren't doing that, that's where you're leaving not only patients behind, but revenue and opportunity. What would it look like for you to apply the unreasonable hospitality framework to your organization? Not as a marketing campaign, but as a way that you operate and the way you do business. Will Guidara didn't adopt unreasonable hospitality as a shtick, for lack of a better term. He adopted it because he cared about the people that came to his restaurant and he cared about his staff. And he wanted everyone to be successful in their career, but also in their experience with him and his brand, which was his restaurant. So if you were going to adopt that for your organization or your medical practice, what would it look like? What would it feel like to the people that visited your office? What would they be telling other people about their experience from the minute that they started to engage with you? Would they want to share an article? Would they be willing to share a post? Would they feel moved by a story that you shared? Or is it just dribble like everyone else is putting out these days because you can create it with AI? If it's not personalized and it doesn't invoke emotion or connection, then you might want to rethink the way that you're proceeding with trying to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. So let's walk through some examples of how this could look, specifically in a medical practice. So if you have a patient or an incoming patient that maybe is nervous about a diagnosis, so maybe it's someone that lives on their own and they are potentially looking at ankle, foot, or hip surgery, all of which can be very challenging while living on their own to get to the places they need to get to and do the things that they need to do. And they're concerned about what that looks like. But if you had a coordinator that could reach out to them and answer their questions and give them resources so that they could prepare ahead of time, what would that do to the relationship? It would ease their fears. They would feel like they had control over the situation, and they would probably be immensely grateful that they had someone reach out ahead of time and ease their fear and panic. So another example is you have a patient that was referred. If you missed my referral video, I talked about that last week, and you can't see them right away. It's maybe a 2 or 3 month wait, which is very often the case. Like doctors get backed up and schedules are booked between all the different shoes that they have to fill within the office. Things happen. But what if instead of, well, it's 3 months, suck it up, which is most of the time the attitude, instead they got a very welcoming letter that said, we appreciate you being here. We know that it's so inconvenient that you have to wait this amount of time. We are doing our best to see patients as quickly as possible, and we are just grateful that you have chosen us. And we really, really appreciate your patience in this matter. If there's any opportunity that we can get you in faster, we will reach out to you. If you want to be placed, on a wait list or whatever that is, you can click this button and our team will ensure that you're on the wait list and we will keep you notified if something opens up sooner. That goes a long way because most people aren't doing that. They aren't taking the time to have those conversations. They're not taking the time to make people feel like people. And especially if an organization is having a challenge with getting patients in right away, if you can follow that up with just simple acts of kindness and communication, the chances that they will not only be more patient while they're waiting for their appointment, but they will tell other people about it are exponentially higher. And then another example is if you have a long-term patient and they refer a family member or a friend. It would take a physician maybe 2 or 3 minutes to send a personal note saying, thanks so much for referring your family or friend. Not a templated email, but just a quick note that says, this is really me. It could have their picture, it could have their name, whatever. It could be a handwritten note, however your organization wants to handle that. But that note will mean the world to them. I remember years ago, this is an example I have that's not exactly related to medical, but is a great example of this in place was years ago, I worked on Barack Obama's first campaign for president. And that Christmas, I got in the mail a Christmas card from the White House that was a thank you note for working on the campaign. And it was signed by his name. And, not every thank you note was specifically written out because that would be impossible because he had millions of people working on his campaign. But I would bet every single person that worked on the campaign got a note that was signed by him from the White House. And I just remember, in fact, I still have it. And I think that was the first time that on a large scale, I could see the importance of just those human connections and human touches. Now, does every campaign do that? I don't know because I haven't volunteered on any other campaigns. But I know for me personally, having that Christmas card come from the White House addressed to me, thanking me for working on the campaign was really meaningful because I gave up a lot of my personal time and energy to do that and to go canvass and do the things to help him get elected. Now, does everybody have the resources or team or time or staff to do that? No. But if you are trying to grow your practice and referrals are important to you, can you spend 2 or 3 minutes per new patient just sending them a quick note? And whether that is handwritten or email or whatever it might be, I'm a big fan of handwritten notes, even if it's short, for the specific reason that nobody does it anymore. And if you send a handwritten card to somebody, they will likely get it and hold on to it, and it is more meaningful to them because it's not something that happens all the time. People get emails all day, every day. But a handwritten note, that's something that stands out. So when you're creating content, if you're creating regular marketing content, what most practices will do is just create the same things that all their competitors do. They hire an agency, the agency goes and looks for search terms, and they talk about all the different things that usually AI is writing the article and pulling from everyone else's article, the same information about the same conditions, about whatever general knowledge that they want to put on the website. But ways to differentiate yourself on your website and in practical ways, whether that's social media, writing blog posts, or all of the above, is to bring what happens inside your organization to the outside and taking those little stories and making them public. You don't have to get into specific medical conditions. You don't have to release specific things that are going on with patients. You can keep these at a higher level. And what's even better is if you can get the patients to tell the stories, because then when they are talking about their transformation of not being able to do the things they liked, like play golf, or they always had to ride a cart, or they were really slow, or their golf game was getting worse because their foot was bugging them, or whatever it might be, to I had the best game ever. I can walk 18 now. I never have to be in a cart unless I want to, or if it's raining, or whatever those stories are. They can be lighthearted, they can be funny. And when the patients tell them, there's going to be even more emotion and personalizations in those stories. And it takes so little to document those and to get them out so that other people that are facing those same challenges can see that life doesn't have to be the way that it is right now. They can actually reach the other side. The other way that you can do this is by having your docs create content about why they do what they do. I've mentioned this one before, but it's really important. Like, everyone can talk about their specializations and their extra training and their medical school experience and, all of the letters after their name. But at the end of the day, the everyday Joe Blow doesn't care about those letters. They care about why you do what you do. And so maybe you have an experience where You are a pediatric specialist. And the reason that you work with kids is you had an experience as a kid that a doctor helped you. But nobody knows that story because you don't talk about it. You just talk about the letters after your name. And I'm not discounting that. I know doctors go through immense training and it's a lot of work and it's very hard and time consuming. But at the end of the day, every doctor goes through the same training. The thing that makes you different is the reason you do what you do. And if that's treating kids because as a kid you broke your leg and you didn't know if you'd walk again, that's a very compelling story. And any parent or child that needs to have surgery on their leg, for example, or have rehabilitation done on their leg, wants to know that story, but you're not telling it. So if you can think about those examples and the way that is meaningful to the people that want to work with you and come to your practice, your physicians probably have story after story after story that they could share, but nobody's asked them. They could create a 3 to 5 minute video on their phone, or you could record them for 3 to 5 minutes, go and edit it, and that becomes very significant content that nobody else is creating. And it can't be replicated by AI or templated so that somebody else copies it because they're personal, they're unique, and they tell such a compelling story. And then the last component is if you've watched any of the other videos that I've talked about, creating processes around patient care and bringing patients into your practice and patient experience, then doing behind the scenes videos about that experience with your patients and what it's meant not only to your organization, like we're able to see more patients, we're able to take more time with those patients, we're able to build stronger relationships because we did all of these other things. Or from the patient perspective of, hey, when I come in, I feel welcome. I feel like I'm with family. I never have to worry because they've taken care of all of the things that I used to worry about. The insurance, the billing, the what to do before, during, and after surgery, all of those different things. And if the processes are created and the differentiation is created, then the patients want to tell those stories. But some of those random behind the scenes administrative things that we think are so boring are going to make all the difference in the things that your practice is able to do because you put them in place. So tell those stories. Before, it was like this. Everybody's ripping their hair out and running in 15 directions and nobody got extra time. And if one person did have extra time, it threw the whole schedule off. You know what this looks like. But if you have pulled your practice out of that behavior and out of that unfunctioning system, and you created a different experience for your patients, then you should talk about that. That's something that's compelling to people. We are always on time, and this is why. And those kinds of stories are ways that are things that your future patients are looking for, and you just haven't told the story yet. So if you are a regular viewer of these videos, you know that every week I give you an action plan. And this week we have a 3-step action plan as well. So step number 1 is to ask 5 current patients why they chose you, why they send people your way, and why they keep coming back. Now, I want you to listen, but I also want you to record this because what's really important about this conversation is the words they are using to describe you become your differentiation factor. And if you can't recall the exact words because you're in clinical mode and you speak about things in a certain way, you're going to lose the magic of this step. And so record it and then throw it through an AI translator to pull out the language, because that is going to become the magic for how you create new messaging. Step number 2 is to go and look at your current website and do a tally sheet of how many times do you talk about all the things you do and the equipment you have and the processes that you have in place versus the number of outcomes. People usually look like this. People come to us for this. People start here and end up here. And then when you compare those two lists, you're probably going to discover you have some work to do. chances are pretty high that they're not going to be equal or anywhere close to equal. And that's okay, because recognizing where things are not equal is the first step to making adjustments and equalizing the things that you're talking about so that they appeal more to the people that you want to work with and that want to work with you. And then the last step of this process is to identify one specific moment within your patient experience that you could add a human moment, whether that's sending someone a note when they send you a referral, a personalized note to say, thanks so much for sending us your sister-in-law, blah, 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 we appreciate it. Or it's a personalized note after surgery. Everything went well. We're so grateful that you came to us. We're here for everything you need post-surgery. Here's the coordinator you can talk to, whatever that might be. You figure out the moment in your process that's going to be the easiest to implement and the most impactful in that patient experience. And then start taking steps to make that part of your process. What you probably won't realize by adding that one human moment in to whatever process you choose and whatever moment you choose is that's where the stories are going to start. That's where the stories that people will start to tell without you doing anything are going to start. And the reason that they're going to start there is because you took the time and you had the intention of making someone feel like a human and not just another number. Most businesses aren't going to take the time or energy to do that. But when you take the time and energy to do that, and you do it in a way that makes someone feel like they're seen and heard, they're going to tell other people about it. And then they start to tell the story the way you want them to. So if you are a specialty practice or an organization that is struggling with how to differentiate yourself in the market, or how to start having people tell these stories, or where to even start with these stories, that is something that I help organizations with. There is a link below this video if you would like to book a free call and we can get started and just have a short conversation about where you are and where you want to be and see if we're a good fit to work together. In the meantime, I appreciate you making it to the end of this video. If you've enjoyed this content, I would love for you to share it with someone else, and in hopes that they can find value in it as well. And if you like the video, I would love for you to hit the thumbs up. In the meantime, I will see you next week. Take care, be well, and stay safe.